Good evening. I apologize for the late start, but I will call to order the council meeting for August 21st, 2017. Please stand for invocation. Is Bobby here? Thank you, Bobby.
Will you bow your heads with me, please? Father God, we thank you for this day, God. We thank you for continuing to bless us and keep us. God, we thank you for all things. Thank you, God, for bringing us through dangers seen and unseen. We ask you, Father, be with this agenda that we have before us today. Be with these council persons, give them the wisdom they need and the knowledge and understand the responsibility they have to this community. God, we ask you please be with all our first responders. Continue to watch with them, watch over them, keep them safe, keep them protected. We pray for our mayor. We pray for all our staff, the persons who work for our city. God, we pray for all the persons who are present here this evening. Be with them. And thank you, God, for having people in our community that think it's important enough to come out to understand how our city is being governed. God, we ask you to continue to watch over us and keep us. God, we ask you to give us another day journey in this life that will continue to help the least, the last, and the lost. We always want to make sure we keep the focus on trying to help others. That is what you ask us to do. This prayer we ask in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bobby. Roll call, please.
Councilperson White.
Present.
Councilperson Yon. Present. Councilperson Maples.
Here.
Councilperson Hawkins.
Here.
Council President Gill.
Here.
Councilperson Owen.
Here.
Councilperson Ellis.
Here.
Council Vice President Samuel.
Here.
Let the record reflect 8 council members are present. Councilperson Zastavny is absent at this time.
Yes, he's traveling back, and hopefully he will get here, but it'll be late if he gets here. I need the minutes to be approved from our regular proceedings of August 7th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Is Mr. Maples
motion carries.
second?
Got approval of agenda.
I thought they were asking who seconded that. Sorry.
Approval of the agenda.
If there are no changes, move to accept.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Claims to be approved, general. We did get the appropriations, right?
Yes. Civil City claims are $1,109,480.38.
Okay. Do you have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Approve the general claims of $1,109,480.38. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Parks.
I have one change on page 4. Peggy in my office found some double billing, so we've got a little bit of a credit on there. If you get to page 4, it's on, it's MVBS Jeffersonville is the vendor. The total amount on the docket is $3,552.75. That one should be at $2,222.50 with a savings of $1,330.25. The correct amount should be $2,222.50. 50. So the difference between those two numbers is $1,330.25.
Can you give a new total?
New total is $99,435.93.
Those claims went out last week, and I didn't receive any questions from the authority members. Did you?
But we did get that one Menards one where I didn't know about that vendor and where it was shipped to, and that one was...
Yes, it was shipped to the store, yes.
Motion approved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the adjusted claim amount of $99,435.93.
Yes.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Heather. Report of the clerk.
None at this time.
Okay, then we'll move right on to unfinished business. First up, we have Mr. Kraft. We will have a public hearing tonight. It's the ordinance for the vacation of the public way pursuant to petition filed by Campfire Properties.
Yes, very briefly. John Kraft, law firm of Young, Lindners & Kraft, 126 West Spring Street in New Albany. As I appeared before you at your last meeting and outlined my client's request, my client is Campfire Properties, LLC. It is the landowner of the property where Munich Welding is, and it has acquired 3 other parcels of land that are contiguous to it. They are at the end, the dead-end portion of Fairview. The request is primarily to vacate the remaining portion of Fairview where these properties start, and then likewise there is an unnamed alley, a 10-foot alleyway that is likewise between those 2 properties at the end. We're here this evening to request that you pass an ordinance vacating those, and certainly I have prepared an ordinance, and likewise Ms. Conlon has prepared an ordinance as well, that vacate those, and ultimately that vacation would be, of course, subject to any rights the city would have in those right-of-ways, subject to, of course, to the city engineer approving the same, and then likewise any areas that would be flood areas, anything of that nature, certainly would not have any effect upon those. We're asking that you approve the vacation of the roadway and the unnamed alley, and certainly do understand this being a public hearing. I will sit down and let any folks that desire to step forward. I do have, in the event that any of them would have a question, I'm going to leave this on the lectern so I can point out to them if there are any questions. Thank you.
Will this be OR 56? Yes. Okay. At this time, we're going to open it up to a public hearing. Is there anybody here to wish for or against the vacate of this property? Please step forward. Say your name and your address for the record, please. Okay, seeing none, I'm officially closing public hearing. So does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Kraft? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved 2017 OR 56.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 56. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Next up, we have Vicki. You've got 2017 OR 49. This is your cash change fund. Has anything changed since last?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 49, third and final reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Merkley, an ordinance establishing a non-reverting sidewalk construction fund. This did pass in our first and second at last meeting.
The ordinance does exactly what the title says. We're establishing a new fund that will handle all funds in reference to the construction and maintenance of sidewalks within the city, and then we'll move all the monies into that fund once that fund is established.
Nobody has any questions. I'll entertain a motion for third and final.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 51, the third and final. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. So we'll go right into 2017 OR 52. That's the ordinance amending 2016 OR 1 and ordinance establishing a sidewalk fee in lieu program. Did pass on first and second.
And as a result of the ordinance that you just adopted a moment ago, we need to amend 2017 OR 52 to remove certain language in which it had established a non-reverting construction fund. We still would have the in lieu program established as a result of this ordinance. It's just the money would go into the fund that you just established.
I'll make a motion to approve OR 52 on the, 50,
Yep.
yeah,
right,
52 on the third and final.
Do I have a second?
No, second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 52 and the third and final. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So it'll lead us right into 2017 OR 53, the ordinance establishes a sidewalk non-reverting fund, which we're repealing several other ordinances.
And continuing on the popular thing of sidewalks, this ordinance abolishes a series of ordinances that had previously established the program that we had referred to as the Sidewalk Replacement Program Fund, which was the 50-50 match. This ordinance would abolish those ordinances or rescind those ordinances, abolish that program. Whatever money's left in that program would go over into the new non-reverting fund that you have now established.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 53 and a third and final. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Norwood. Now we're moving on to Heather, 2017 OR 54, an ordinance of additional appropriation that did pass on the first and second. Anything changed? If not, I'm going to go ahead and officially open up public hearing. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak for or against? And it is on the screen. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, I'm officially closed. And being that this will be third and final, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 54 and third and final. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
And just like that, the momentum's gone.
Gotta take time to sign so I can pass it down. Okay, we are on, this was the ordinance that was tabled last time, 2017 OR 55, ordinance of additional appropriation.
So
Anything
public
changed?
hearing for tonight.
Yeah, has anything changed?
No.
It has to be either brought up to the table again, because it was tabled, so you have to bring it back to the table.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, I was doing that.
Hmm.
I just wanted to know if anything had changed, everything's still the same before we open up the public hearing.
Yes, everything's the same.
This is a public hearing?
Yes.
We scheduled, even though we tabled it, we still have an advertised public hearing, so to be safe, I want to open it up for public hearing.
Sorry.
Correct? Yeah. At this time, does anybody want to speak either for or against 2017 OR 55, the additional appropriation? Seeing none, I'm going to close public hearing. Now,
Madam President,
yes,
will entertain a motion. I would move to table 2017 OR 55 until passage of the budget for 2018.
I'll second.
okay, got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 55.
Wait a minute, hang on just a second, please. If you table it, I have to continue to keep putting it on the agenda because it's tabled. Do you want to remove it and then start over again?
No.
Okay, so it's going to be on the agenda each month until each meeting.
I
until you
mean,
all decide
that's
what to do.
potentially like 2 months, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
November,
gonna be on the
yeah. You
agenda.
passed the budget the last meeting in October.
So,
So could we remove it?
and
I'll
then
say remove
re-add
it and
it?
bring it back.
It's tabled
Reintroduce.
until passage of the budget. Do we have to list it on the agenda?
Yes.
That's the big issue.
Yes.
I think we have to
put it
remove
on
it from
each
the
time. That's
agenda.
Robert Rules of Order.
And if it's listed on the agenda, do we have to take action knowing that it's tabled until
Yes.
the budget is passed?
Yes, you do. You have to, every meeting you have to take it, you have to move to table it again. That's Robert's Rules of Order.
I like that. I mean, we did it differently in the Plan Commission, but I was told I was wrong.
No. It's Robert's Rules of Order, that's what you're supposed to do.
I like that.
If you
So
would,
is that, okay, I'm fine with that.
so,
So is the motion standing to table, or we all rescind, because I had a motion
That's the
and a
motion.
second? Standing?
So what is it we're voting to do? Keep this on the agenda until the second meeting in October?
Yeah, it'll be on
So that's-
every time
Well,
you
I-
have to take action.
It seems as if I'm looking at a picture here and I'm missing a piece. Why are we doing this? What would we do this for?
Because the project that it supports is going to be presented in the budget. And if it's passed in the budget, then the need for it will go away. If it's not, then the need will be there.
Could we
So
not-
if there's not a need, then we don't have to
Table it, right.
well, but no, my point is let's say we remove it from the docket entirely, and then later if we approve the budget and we need the additional appropriation at that point, then we can
Bring it back up.
bring
Yes.
the additional
Reintroduce.
appropriation.
Yes.
If the money's
Otherwise,
there.
we might not need it at all.
Right. And right now, their motion's standing, so we can go for a vote, and that table will either pass or fail, and then whatever the outcome of that motion is, I guess we'll decide.
I'll just rescind the second.
You're going to rescind it?
Yep.
Okay.
Just pull it from the agenda.
Pull it.
Are you rescinding your motion? And if not, then he's rescinded his second, then I need a second.
And will we just review what's coming up on the,
Yeah, there's nothing that prevents us from adding another additional appropriation later, at a later time.
okay. That's what we're trying to do. Let's do it.
Okay.
I'll rescind the motion.
Motion to remove from the agenda.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to remove 2017 OR 55 from the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business, we have Peggy Duffy, update on city pride and projects. What, you gonna wow us?
Well, I had a lovely presentation, but I was told that there's not enough time, so I apologize. We'll try and keep this pretty short. I understand y'all have a full agenda, but we haven't been in here in probably 4 or 5 years, and that's the reason that I wanted to come in tonight. I know we have some city council people that really don't know us. We've had new council people come in since we've been in here last. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but I did want to just kind of go over again who we are and what we do and what we've going on right now. For those of you who don't know, City Pride started in 2004. It was originally called the Mayor's Pride and Beautification Committee. We thought that sounded like a communist work party, so we went with the name City Pride. It is 100% volunteer. And it is the only city department that is 100% volunteer. We have no wages associated with our department. We started, our very first project in 2004 was rehabbing medians on Court Avenue. If you look at them now and you say, well, we've got some things that don't look so great, and we've got some weeds, you should have seen them then. There were maybe 2 shrubs down the entire length of Court Avenue, and we brought in, I think we had 7 total sponsors to help rehab those, and we have been maintaining them ever since. Also, to give you a perspective, at that time, because they were in such bad repair, there was no irrigation system, and we put in new plants in May, and there were about 4 of us that hauled 5-gallon buckets full of water up and down the medians 3 nights a week for the entire summer. The next summer, we started our first fundraiser, River Breeze, and we were able to raise enough money that we could upgrade the irrigation system, and we didn't have to haul water anymore, thank goodness. It was not how I wanted to spend my summer. We started having River Breeze in 2005. We also in 2005 started, there were no welcome signs into the city of Jeffersonville at all. And we started getting those funded, and we put out, I think we put out 5 in the very beginning, and those were the old wooden Welcome to Jeffersonville signs that you used to see. Those have since been replaced in some places, but we still have quite a few of them up. We have moved on. We have partnered with local companies and churches. We have a great partnership with, for example, Steel Dynamics, where we get crews of 10 and 15 people at least 3 times a year to come and help us with projects. Northside Christian comes and volunteers with us 2 days out of the year. I can't even name for you all the other companies that we partner with. We are responsible for, and we have put out all of the planters that you see in the downtown, here at City Hall, all over town. We take care of those. We plant those 3 times a year. We also, once again, we replant Court Avenue medians 3 times a year, and we maintain those. The 2 areas in Warder Park, the Children's Garden and the Thomas Jefferson Garden, those were projects that we did with Steel Dynamics and with 2 of the elementary schools. We maintain those as well, and in fact, we have some tired volunteers that are sitting here because they spent a bunch of time last week weeding those projects. Gaither Park, which is, if you didn't know it, is an actual park. Paul will back me up on that. And that's the little median there at Red Carpet Liquors that has the sprout sculpture coming out of it. If you didn't see it before, it was just a bunch of utility lines. And City Pride did the renovation on all the landscaping, and then we worked with the Jeffersonville Arts Alliance and the welding department at Jeff High to do the sculpture. In fact, and this just shows you how tolerant the volunteers are with my insanity, I insisted that since it was a park and everybody said it was a park, that we needed to have a picnic in that park when we were done with the project. We have photographic evidence that City Pride did have a picnic with a cookout and the whole bit on a Sunday in the middle of that median there at 8th Street. And the residents thought we were insane. We do all of this maintenance. We are, like I said, 100% volunteer and unfunded in terms of wages. We typically will get $14,000 from City Council as part of the budget, and that we match that with fundraising through in-kind donations as well as cash donations. On a baseline, just to give you an idea of just, we're talking the most basic services that we do. If you figured out our man hours at $11 an hour, I picked a number based on a wide variety of services, our man hours are the equivalent of $21,384 a year. And that is the absolute baseline. That doesn't include any of the extra projects we do. That is like the bare minimum. So that's $21,384 that the citizens of Jeffersonville don't have to pay for things during the year that is all volunteer. Our members are very passionate. We are, for those of you who don't know, the two co-chairs are me and Tony Decker, who's on the fire department. And we get more out of this group of people because they love the city of Jeffersonville. And when I stress the amount of money and the amount of time, it's not to say, come tell us thank you, which we always appreciate, but it's to say that we obviously, we talk all the time about what people want or what people don't think they get. And I will guarantee you, all of you all get 2 phone calls a week from people in the city that say, I'm not getting something that I want, or I'm not happy with something. But this, and we have some of our volunteers here tonight, is evidence that a lot of people really love this city. And there are people who are willing to come out and sweat when it's 96 degrees to replant a city median, or to water flowers that are dying in the heat because they're in city planters. This is not a fluke. We keep getting new volunteers in, we've cycled volunteers out, and it's because people do love their city. Not everyone, but enough people to make a valiant effort. We all know not everybody's going to be happy all the time. Moving forward, the one, I don't want to say problem, but one thing that we're dealing with right now is the average age of our volunteers is 68 years old. We are working right now on trying to figure out how to bring more people into this effort. We've got a lot of people who are very enthusiastic, and they'll come out for like an event, one event a year, which is great. We love it. We want to figure out how to engage more people who really are enthusiastic about their city and find ways for them to bring their efforts in. I would ask each one of you to kind of maybe think about ways within your district, within your area, that you think maybe we might pull some additional people. I don't want to say younger, because we're not supposed to say that in this day and age, but some other people that might be able to contribute to this effort. We have a couple of our volunteers who've told me just in the last week that they're way too old to be hauling this much water this time of year. But we need to bring some more people in. When we first started, there was no mechanism. It wasn't that the city didn't want to cooperate. There was no mechanism within the city to get the city departments to support what we were doing. So there was a lot of figuring things out. Now we work really well with street department, with the parks department. I can make a phone call and, Stephanie, we've got 2 planters that look like they're dying and probably need extra water, and the next time the guys water them, they look great. I mean, we work together really well with city departments, but anything can be improved on. So we're always looking for ways that, new ideas, new people, things that we can do. There are projects all over the city that we've done. I'm sure that there are more projects we could do. So Anytime that you all want to come to one of our meetings, we meet the first and third Tuesday of every month at 9:30 a.m. in the Mayor's Conference Room. Anybody is welcome to call me at any time. If you say, I'd like to come to a meeting, I've got an idea, I want to bring a group in. We've got some big things coming up. We haven't done big projects in a couple of years. If you haven't seen it, we do have a project right now down in the Glossbrenner Garden. We did a little art installation, a little magical kind of installation to go with all the other improvements down there. We're going to be doing some story times with kids in the fall in cooperation with the Parks Department in the garden. But coming up on our agenda, we have two projects. One of them, I'm not going to give away the details because I have to present it to Parks next Monday, and if they approve it, then you'll be hearing more about it. It's a big project, but it could bring a lot more interest to downtown. The second project is something that we are going to have to address, and those are the medians on Court Avenue. This isn't some $5,000 project. There is sewer work that's going to happen directly underneath those medians, and the medians are in really bad shape. Due to the design, they're really hard to maintain. For anybody who's lived in Jeff long enough, you know that they were built directly on top of trolley tracks. So if you see flowers and you say, oh, that looks like they're not taking care of those flowers, no, it's because there's this much soil in those medians. They were poured directly on top of the pavement. We have a really hard time. We've worked with growers in specialty nurseries in Michigan trying to find specific flowers that would work in this really tough environment, and we're still struggling. So these things are going to have to be redone. We've had a lot of meetings on design with planning and zoning, with sewer department, with the city engineer, and with us. And we're just now getting to the point where we're going to start talking about exactly what we need to do so that we can come up with cost estimates. But you'll be hearing more about that as we go into the next year, and obviously we're going to be looking for some funding for that. It's not the kind of thing you can have a bake sale and make enough money for. So we'll be bringing more to you all about that, and we will continue on with our other duties going on into the next year. But we would love to have you all, some involvement, some input, anything, any ideas, anything that you all think we would appreciate.
Peggy, have you all thought about maybe, I know it's probably hard, but I brought it to several of my neighborhood meetings and also in my district. And the issue that I've had, they want to get involved, but they can't be there Tuesday morning at 9:30, especially the younger ones because they work. Have you all ever thought about having a nighttime meeting, maybe just once a month or once every month, where you can get ones that work can get involved?
We actually went through 2 years where we were doing a nighttime meeting like every third month, and we didn't get any more involvement than we did. The truth, I mean, if we're being honest, a lot of people look at where they see us and they say, I don't want to be kneeling down in some median when it's 95 degrees outside pulling up weeds. We do a lot of other, which, you can understand that. We do a lot of other things besides that people we think would want to be involved with. It's just that's the most visible. And so I think sometimes there's a perception that it's, you're going to be in work camp on the chain gang, and who wants that? So we're going to be, one of the project that I'm going to be presenting next week, we're hoping it's a lot more fun, and we think we might be able to draw some people in with that as well. But like I said, if you have some ideas where you say, maybe we could, give some information. I've spoken a lot of times at the neighborhood association, talking to people about everything we do. We try to stress to people that if you come out for one event a year, we love you. You can come out once a year, you can come out once every 2 years, you can come out every week. It's entirely up to you. We just encourage people to participate. So any ideas you all have, we would greatly appreciate. And some of our volunteers are here tonight.
Bicycles.
You
didn't tell them.
Oh, no, we have more bicycles coming. The bicycle planters are ours. A lot of times people think those are public art. They may be public art, but the bicycle planters are ours. What's that?
I said they are public art.
They are public art,
But
that's
they're
right.
here. I mean, they're...
But we have more bicycles coming out. No, they are not memorials for people who have gotten squashed on a bike, because a lot of people think that. No, they're just planters. So anything else that you all have, if you say, well, there's an area that, I'm responsible for, and we would love a bike there, let us know. If you got something else, just let us know. Like I said, we hadn't been in to come talk to y'all in a while, so we figured it would it would be nice to come say hi and say, whatever you got, we love it.
Peggy, did I hear you mention that you had a different presentation that you had planned for tonight? Would you mind sending that out to us if it was
Sure.
a PowerPoint or video? I'd love to see it.
It doesn't have the great vocal to go with it, but yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate all City Pride does. We keep in contact, and I went down to Glossenbrenner Park, and I took my nieces and nephews, and my daughter were amazed. They loved the Harry Potter theme you had going on. And the mosaics, the work was just gorgeous.
That was all done by our volunteers.
It was gorgeous. So thank you all.
And we also, if you haven't been down there, and Tony Decker gets full credit, there is a chair in the garden that's made of stones. It soon will have moss growing on it, but we're going to alter that wall so that people can sit in the chair and have their picture taken. They like to do that. They like to do with the bike that's sitting outside the garden. They like to sit by there and have their picture taken. So the more photo opportunities, particularly from people walking across the bridge, the better.
I would just comment that, Peggy, I appreciate all your effort in leading that, and you guys were doing this. You kind of started the public art movement way back before it's happening now, and so you get major kudos, and we appreciate all you do and your team.
Well, thanks for your attention. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Mr. Hawkins, the Jeffersonville Fraternal Order of Police contract.
We have before us tonight the contract from the fruit of the negotiations from the FOP. Hopefully a lot of your questions were answered in the executive session that we had concerning this. I'd like to say a couple things before we vote on it. Before getting involved with this, and with this I mean city council and police negotiations and fire negotiations, I knew we had a good police department. It's not like I see them every day. I don't call them to my house very often. But I knew we had a reputation as being like a professional police department. But then in having to meet many times with the negotiation team for the FOP and with the administration, and then through the learning process of trying to educate myself more as time went on, talking to more and more policemen, I found that my understanding going into it was somewhat flawed. And the flaw was that we don't have just a pretty good police department. They are well respected across the state. In fact, I'll share one brief story. I was in Jasper, Indiana for Strassenfest. And every time I go to a festival, it's a very big festival in Jasper, and anytime I go, I try to track down either the security or the manager and ask, like, how many problems do you guys have? How do you deal with this? Just for my own benefit when it comes back to Jeff. And when they found out I was a Jeff city councilman, all they wanted to talk about was the Jeff PD. And I think it's also reflective, now we have this new live PD going on in the city, which of course everybody was very leery of at first, but I think on a nightly basis, it shows what a professional and fantastic police department that we have. I think this contract rewards the degree of professionalism that I believe that we had. Now, it is, for every member who will make their own vote, it is a lot of money and it's a large expense. And the one question that came about, kind of the final, summarize it in one question, was Heather, I'd like to include you, was that is what we have agreed to sustainable? The word was sustainable. And in your best opinion, is it a sustainable contract? Yes. Okay. And with that, that's really all I had to say until it passes, and then or it doesn't, and then I'll have a lot to say. But that's all I got.
We do have Jason Jackson, which is the president of the FOP. If anybody has you want to say anything, or if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask him.
It seems like we started this during the last solar eclipse, but now we're here. So, in all seriousness, we set out to do one thing, and that was to have a contract that was not only beneficial to our members, but also to the city and the public that we serve. And I think we did that, we accomplished that. And looking at the numbers and re-looking at the numbers and discussing it, I feel as well that it's very sustainable. So I stand for any questions that I can answer.
Jason, I'm going to ask you, because I asked similar to the fire department.
Mhm.
We know that the fire and the police, they want to work with us, want the best for the city, and but if we ever did, because this is for a 4-year, if we got into a situation, you are gladly going to come to the table with us, and we're going to roll up our sleeves, whether it be insurance or something else comes down, God forbid, a major catastrophe or something, something like that, that you'd be willing to sit down with us and work with us to get us through whatever financial impact or trouble or whatever that we may have or may not have. Everything may be fine. That's just as when you're sitting here as a city councilman, you got to take in the whole budget.
Yes.
And not just, for the FOP or for the fire. But I think someone would be reassured if you'd say, I'm here to work with the city, we're for the city, and we'll be glad to sit back down at that table if we have to.
That is most certainly the truth. When it comes to the insurance or anything else, that's why we include that opener in there, that we can discuss and do that. And we would feel that the same way if there was something on the other side that was an issue or a problem, that you all would as well be open for us to come to you. So yes, most certainly we would do that.
Thank you.
Well, Jason, there was one question that come up while we were in executive section,
Yes, sir.
and I know that you've been over this budget a number of times, probably know it better than any of us would ever, but could you tell us what the cost of this budget would be, or of this contract, what the cost of this contract would be over its life of 4 years?
Okay, 2017.
I don't have the numbers for over the course of 4 years. I ran the numbers from 16 to 17, and the number I came up with were different areas. The rank differential was about an $8,000 difference. Detectives was a $7,800 difference. FTO was $7,000. The 457, based on 1/3 of the department doing it, was $62,000. The high deductible health plan, or the HSA, I believe it was about $28,000, and the shift differential was $29,000, for a total of about $142,000. Now, with that being said, the city going into 2017 is saving, and I believe my numbers are correct, was about $112,000 because the 450, or not the 457, but the retirement fund was reduced by 2.1%. So, I'm sorry?
By the state.
Yeah, by the state. It was, the state reduced it. So the difference is about $32,000 because there's going to be that savings.
Thank you.
I think the 457 plan with the 457B plan with the match coming from the city and your guys is probably the best thing to come out of the contract. I think that's awesome for you guys, and I'm glad that we're in a position because of that state reduction to put that in place for you guys and the fire department. I think that's going to really set your guys apart when it comes to attracting talent to both departments. The one question I did have was over a specific section of the contract that revolved around FOP days.
Yes, sir.
There were 3 sections, 3 subsections to that part of the contract. One granted FOP days, or days off for FOP members without penalty or without use of a vacation day or any kind of comp time like that.
Yes, sir.
One instance that was granted is to come to the table and negotiate your contract with the city, which I think is important for your all's ability to come in good faith and negotiate. Another instance that FOP days would be granted, days off would be granted for FOP members was for social events like the golf scrambles and the state prize and that sort of thing. But it did state in that section that if a day off there triggered overtime, then your members would be required to use comp time or vacation day.
Yes, sir.
And then a third section mentions, I think, Police Week the national convention and the state FOP convention.
Yes, sir.
And those, I think those come to 60 days total in that particular subsection. And those are days without any penalty and without having to use any kind of comp time or vacation days.
Yes.
And that section stuck out to me as something that seemed a bit odd. I'm not sure, and I didn't know if that was something that you could explain why that would be different from your other social events. I think it's important that we would allow your membership that are involved in those things to go and be a part of that and maybe even have priority on getting those days. But why would we not expect those days to be covered by comp time if overtime is employed?
Those days under the current contract are allowed anyway. It's just a matter of using vacation time or not using vacation time.
Right.
So the overtime is still going to be paid regardless of if the member gets that day. When it comes to some of those events, there is, you said social event, and those are conventions. Those are educational conventions. Two of them, the state FOP conference and the national FOP conference, we attend police training during those events. So it's there's also other, for FOP business, like a conference or for the meeting,
right.
But we also have the opportunity to learn different aspects. And I think a divine intervention happened because I have 2 certificates that I received from the state conference that got me CEUs or law enforcement credit, and there's 13 different police trainings that are going to be happening at the state or the national conference next week in Nashville, and one of them is put on by the FBI. So they're not social events, it's an education, and that opportunity for us to go to those saves the city money because the FOP's footing that bill, and it also allows for us to get our police credits. And it also allows for our vacation days to be used for exactly what that was for, vacation. And I can give a quick story, and I shared it with Lisa earlier today, that my son's getting married next month, and I went out of town with him and several friends, and our vote happened Friday. It ended at 8 o'clock. And I was able to go out of town. I didn't even think about it because I was actually on vacation. And then I didn't get the information until Saturday. So it is something that it is not a social event. It is a educational process. And then the other one you mentioned was Police Week, which is a very important one to us because it memorializes the officers killed in the line of duty. Not only here with the officer that we had, William Drury, we get that opportunity to go and be a part of that memorial, but it's across the state of Indiana. So that's why we felt that those specific areas were important, that the city allow us the time off to go do those events for that education and for that time to reflect. And I can probably speak for all of us that are in the room that have been to any of these, that it's also rejuvenating to your career. It helps you get remotivated when you come back to do things again. So that's why those stood apart.
When you go to other training that the department sends you to,
yes,
how does that work? Like, walk me through that process. When the chief comes in and says, we'd like to send 3 guys to this training in Indianapolis for 3 days next week, you don't have any kind of, that's kind of the same thing as this section, right? That you're going without penalty and without using any kind of time?
That's correct. You get training days.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the department or the city would then pay for your hotel, for your food,
right.
And everything else associated with that. When we go to the FOP business, it's the FOP.
The FOP pays for your lodging and your
everything.
Travel. Okay.
Everything is paid for through the FOP, yes.
Okay.
And I would like to point out, one of the events that, in the 60-day total, one of those is only every other.
Thank you for that,
is
yes.
every other year.
Is every other year.
So the real number isn't 60, and maybe you could help me. I think the average is 50.
National Police Week.
Is that the national?
No, I'm sorry, not national.
Convention?
The National FOP Conference is every other year.
Okay.
Can I get any more questions for Jason?
We would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, if there's no more questions, I'd like to Call for a vote on Resolution 2017 R8.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 R8. Any further discussion?
I just have a quick question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So between those three events, those are 60 days? That's,
If all
if
three of
it's all
them were
three
to
of
be
them.
that year,
so
then it
they
would be
each
60.
average 20 days?
No, there are like 4 members for this event,
I see, okay.
3 members for this
Okay,
event.
I was like, that seems like a really long conference.
No, no, no.
Okay, all right.
That's
good.
not the case.
All right.
Call for a roll call vote.
Okay,
I do have a comment,
okay.
Madam Chair. I would echo everything Mr. Hawkins said, or Councilman Hawkins said, and I would also add that just this past weekend, I had a very long Facebook discussion about PD, live PD, and the question was, why did we do that? And I kept responding that it shows the professionalism of our police force. And it was kind of interesting because that didn't seem to be a sufficient enough answer. And then somebody said, well, I figured there'd be some kickback. And I said, well, then we'd have a whole nother discussion about how corrupt we are, right? So that's why there are no kickbacks. So I just reiterate over and over again that it shows the professionalism of our police force. And I know a few of the police officers, and I read a lot of their police reports in my daily life. And I can tell you that if the client is arrested in Jeffersonville, usually the reports are written well, the evidence is identified properly, and they generally testify well in the courtroom. And all this comes from training and some of the FOP events, I'm sure. But I also get to read police reports from other departments, and they would benefit from learning from our police department. So I said it before during the fire contract, and I'll say it again because it's something I firmly believe, is that one of the fundamental reasons why we have a municipal government is so we have our public safety, so we should expend the necessary funds to make sure that they have all the tools they need, that they're well-trained, and that their morale is where it should be, so they can treat the citizens of Jeffersonville with the respect that they do when they're called in times of need. So we spent a very long time on this. They are very formidable negotiators. But I appreciate that. They're fighting for what they believe is right. There are some things I didn't get, which I would have liked to have been in there. One was FMLA. So there are some things that they wanted, I agreed with, but not everything that was presented was agreed to. So in the end, I think we have a very good contract, and I would urge everyone to support it.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please. Councilperson White.
Aye.
Of course, Councilperson Sestovning's not here. Councilperson Yon.
Aye.
Councilperson Maples.
Aye.
Councilperson Hawkins.
Aye.
Councilperson Owen.
Aye.
Council Vice President Samuel.
Aye.
Councilperson Ellis.
Over my years of being involved in city government, I can say that I've had a very good relationship with the police department. They have never failed to respond to any of the requests that I've had. And although there are some things on this contract that I'm not 100% in favor of, I am going to vote yes.
Thank you, sir. Council President Gill.
Aye. So the motion unanimously passes.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
While before we move on to the next thing, I would like to thank Jason Jackson and his team. They are, oftentimes I sit in his chair when I contract for teacher pay, and I know that's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of guys counting on you, and you really have to do your homework and put in your time, and the guys that are members of the FOP should know that Jason does that. His whole team does that. And on the flip side, I want to give a shout out to the chief and Joe Hubbard and McVoy and McGee, because I didn't know anything I didn't know what an SOP was. I didn't know anything. And they were very good at dealing with each other, getting the language right, telling us what was right or wrong. And so I wanted to make sure they all got thanked, and I also wanted to thank the rest of it, Dustin, Scotty, Lisa. It was a long time. It was a battle sometimes, but I'm glad we all did it together, and that's it.
Before you, I'm going to pass it around, and there's a place for you all to sign on the resolution. On the very back, there's a sticker, and it's for Scotty, Dustin, Scott Hawkins, and Lisa Gill to sign. So be sure to sign the back page.
Jason, you want to sign while you're here too?
Yes.
Have all signed?
There's other people that need to sign too. There's,
Mayor.
No, there's a list of people on there that need to sign. I don't know if they're all here. Mike Smith?
Mike Smith, Aaron Olson,
Yes.
Brody,
Chris Martin?
Chris Martin.
I can get it from Doug.
As soon as we pass it down, we'll let you guys sign it, and then all we're waiting, Les can have it next.
Thank you all very much.
Just on the back, oh.
No, it's just you
You.
guys. Not I.
You're on the back page too, Lisa. Then you're on the really back page.
You're gonna put a sign there, what am I gonna do?
Make sure they sign that form.
The rest of the guys didn't want to stay?
Tacos for everyone.
The tacos.
We got some invigorating stuff.
It was
coming
the
up.
tacos. Is it time for the next contract yet? Is it time for the next contract yet?
Is that the only way we get tacos?
I'll make up a contract if you want.
Yeah.
I think we need to add a food committee to this council.
Nathan will chair.
Nathan can share.
I used to have food before every meeting, just about. There was any
Well, we
way.
had workshops, though.
Who was the coordinator of that?
President.
Council president.
Oh,
Well, if we have a workshop, I'll gladly coordinate.
Is there a place for you to sign it?
me?
Is there a resolution?
Yeah.
What?
I thought you said you didn't do it. There's resolutions on there. Oh,
Okay. You signed the back too?
sorry.
I know, but you did? Okay.
It's done right. She wrote it.
Oh,
Thank you.
sign both places. They will call you, have you come back to sign it. Take my word for it. Who's the secretary on redevelopment now?
Yeah,
You've never lost the case.
no, I haven't. No, I really haven't.
Never Mike's with.
No, like, there's an appointed position.
Is that not Matt?
Oh, Matt.
It used to be me. Are you the new secretary on
Yes, I am.
redevelopment? Do they call you in like every other week to sign stuff like they did me?
Because he wasn't there that day, so we nominated
So they
him.
nominated
I was like, God, that was back when I was working in Salem, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't drive from Salem.
I'm going to make this
They call every other day. Just-
Okay.
No, we don't. Chris Martin, you're next.
Well,
What?
I didn't realize he checked out. He didn't do it. So I didn't think he was on it.
I still need to stop by your office. I keep forgetting.
You haven't gotten that stuff?
Thank you, sir.
I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to see how
I know.
Check it over to the
My dad's wondering. Thinks I lied to
seen
him.
yours.
All right.
Thank you.
Good job, team.
We're all a little bit grayer, but... All right, we're going to move on now with Mr. Wilder. We've got an ordinance mandating department heads and city employees refrain from entering in long-term agreements in violation of Indiana state statutes regulating budget process and budget funding. I do believe this will be 57, correct? OR 57?
I think you're right.
Here's 57.
So it's ironic that this is an opportunity to discuss this ordinance, which was asked to be prepared by Mr. Vestani, who's not here. So he wants to go ahead and discuss what you all hear about what he requested going forward, and then you'll I'm sure address it ever have you feel compelled unless you just showed up.
Microphone.
But you know I don't do that.
You need to get a portable mic.
Be nicer, we'll do,
You wanna
make
take
you
my-
the song.
All right, so here we go. Can I move some though, like that?
Just take them out with you.
Just move around. So essentially what you just did actually is an action that this ordinance contemplates you need to do when you enter into a long-term agreement. So as you are aware, as you're getting ready to start your annual funding, because you all are an annual budget organization, government, you get a certain amount of money that you're told you have that you can spend by virtue of what the Department of Finance tells you has been generated, and then you determine where it is to be spent. So theoretically, there are very limited places where you can commit more than 1 year to spend money. And that's actually, Mr. Merkley agrees with me, statutorily, you cannot commit to spend money beyond a 1-year period unless it's specifically something that's provided for by statute. Or, what you did today was enter into contract where you all, as the fiscal body, committed to spend money beyond the annual budget. So the concern that was raised by Councilman Zastani was that there are some instances where there are money that you all are budgeting on an annual basis, X amount of money for vehicles. And then what is happening is that X amount of money for vehicles is being used to enter into multi-year leases. So what it does is essentially is it commits you to spending that same amount of money to pay for those leases every year during the term of the lease, which in some respects what it does is it takes away your duty and obligation as the fiscal body to make expenditures based upon what money you have available based upon the priorities that you have to spend it for. Does that make sense, or did I get confusing? Because I do that. So, I do that. So the issue then before you in this ordinance is it is basically stating that under the law, an employee, a department head, no one can commit to spend money over the term, an amount of what you fund for that year. Now, interestingly enough, Mr. Merkley whispered in my ear for the first time before we started today and pointed out that this ordinance does create some issue for things like 3-year copy machine leases, which he agrees probably under the law are something you should adopt. In other words, if you commit, if they want a 3-year lease, you need to adopt that, which is your, like you did here, saying we will adopt that we're going to spend this 3-year lease amount of money. And I think Mr. Merkley points out that there's 3-year telephone contracts, correct, that have to be 3-year contracts for phones. So you can see there's some interesting moving parts. The law, and I think I sent you guys about 60 pages of information, and I know every one of you went through them and you highlighted them and you wrote margin notes, and we'll just talk about those when we get done. But the law is that you as a body create an annual budget. You as a body each year determine what resources are there to commit the taxpayer to the next annual budget, that the administration or department heads or employees can't force you to spend money over a longer term of time. And essentially what that would be doing is, if this was not the law, is that you guys could in fact on the last month of your 4th year enter into long-term agreements and commit, spending for the next 10 years for the next 10 years worth of city council, which basically emasculates the government process of checks and balances and finances, and emasculates probably not the correct word, it's a little bit strong, but you know what I mean. Probably a little bit more than I should have said.
Where would things like TIF expansions or like...
Those are considered in the statutes.
Okay.
So, for instance, you guys heard talk about the Barrett laws. Barrett laws are the laws built into the sewer process. So those laws allow for there to be long-term bonds. There are statutes that contemplate the need for long-term commitments and
Okay.
and expenditures. As Mr. Merkley does point out
correctly and rightfully so. This ordinance points more towards things like, so for instance, you budget $100,000 for vehicles for the fire department this year. Well, if the fire department goes out and they take that $100,000 and they use that to enter into a 5-year lease, and they commit you for the next 5 years to spend that $100,000, you're committed to it in theory, because they've committed you to go every year. You start out and go, okay, well, they've got $100,000 they've spent, we got to put it here, whether you believe that should be better spent someplace else.
Okay.
Does that make?
Yeah, they can't obligate us to repeated money.
Right.
For more than 1 year.
Because a nefarious executive, not that we have one, which is a good thing, but someone who might sit down and try to be heavy-handed and overreaching could sit down and enter into a bunch of long-term agreements that commits you to spend money over the next 4 years for those things that you don't necessarily believe are necessary or appropriate, or that you should spend them for, but you've got a commitment for them. So it's basically spend the money we budget, don't enter into long-term deals that causes us not to be able to do what you guys do so well, which is...
Well, how do you
But
suggest that?
If they did and we just decided not to fund it, then that's the end of it, right?
Well,
Would be sued.
there's when you look at the case...
Well, if they're entering into, if the agreements are contrary to state law, and they enter into them anyway, then, I mean, it's up to us. You have said numerous times, it is solely our decision whether or not to appropriate money, right?
I agree, absolutely.
Okay. So we're taking state law and then putting it into a local ordinance just so they can follow state law?
Well, and I think that's exactly what I said to Mr. Destani. I said, well, it seems like what you're asking me to do is write an ordinance that basically says, here's what the law is, follow the law. And he said, I understand that, and yes, do that.
Okay.
So my question would be then, we've done these types of agreements before where we've leased fire trucks for 5 years.
Absolutely.
Or we've leased dump trucks for 3 years, and those things have gone off without a hitch, and that's good because everybody was on the same page. But essentially, we were in violation of state law then.
If you all voted to adopt those agreements, then you're not, because you as the fiscal body are adopting those lease agreements.
You're referring to what goes through Board of Public Works?
It's like any other entity that is not the city council that is obligating financial
Obligating long-term agreements that you all have to fund. Mr. Merkley made a recommendation, and if I misquote you, then that's just the way it goes in life, and I'm just going to misquote you, and you have no complaints. But if you want to interrupt, you can.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what, I mean, no one forces us to pay for something. I mean, we take a vote and we either vote it down or we vote for it. So regardless of what the city signs or the administration signs, it's our decision whether or not we want to fund it. They're not forcing us to do anything.
There's some question, Mr. White, that you and I probably appreciate more than the non-lawyers and Mr. Merkley. There are several of the cases, the reason I put those cases in that I did, that go to the issue of apparent authority. In other words, if someone presents themselves with the apparent authority to enter into an agreement, so I'm the head of the Board of Public Works, or I'm the head of the street department, and I present myself as the head of the street department, I enter into a contract, and for instance, Coyle sells me a garbage truck and I sign it, then I have the apparent authority in their eyes to enter into that agreement. They can sue us for it, and the result of that case may go one way or the other. Mr. Merkley points out that he has been in the past capable of arguing that the provision of the statute we cite to allows the city to terminate an agreement that's not been adopted through this method in advance because it wasn't adopted. And is that correct? Did I say that?
Well, I mean, I guess since we need fire trucks and we'll need police cars and copiers, why don't we pass an ordinance giving them the authority to enter into these contracts?
That's what we talked about. Make your.
Well, it sounds like this is, I'm not going to call it a rubber stamp, but basically it's just requiring that the city council be somehow involved in any of those long-term contracts. So they can still happen, we just need to
Be
sign off
informed
on them.
and sign off.
Yes.
I told you you could. Come over here.
The microphone.
First of all, I have successfully argued the statute before against prior agreements that were entered into as a certain mayor left the city hall doors.
On the other side of that.
No, I think you were on the outs then.
I was on
with
the
that
outs.
one. Okay. Yeah. But the bottom line is, I think these contracts or leases are good as long as you all continue to fund them. If they're no longer funded in an annual budget, then obviously we have an issue where they are subject to being void. I think we all know what the issue is. It's all these leases that were entered into for us to have police cars.
Saved us a lot of money, right?
I mean, it was a decision that was made by the chief and the administration was, how can we get the best bang for our buck? Do we just spend the money we have in a budget just to buy cars? Or can we get more police cars on the street and to improve public safety and to ensure that we have adequate protection for our citizens? And we can lease those cars and get more on the street. That was a decision that was made. They're 3-year leases. There's a lien on those vehicles. If a payment's not made, they'll execute on that lien. We have a fire truck that we currently are leasing, and we have an end date on that of July of next year. I think the council was involved in that decision that it was best to go ahead and to lease as opposed to purchasing. So there's those big ticket items, but then you have the day-to-day items. I mean, we have copiers. The mayor's car is leased, which has always been leased by the city, even with prior mayors. It seems like me, if the concern is the council wants to be involved in those decisions before they're made, so the council's not obligated to fund those multi-year leases or contracts, my suggestion would be is, instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and say we're not going to do it at all, why not just adopt an ordinance that says that the city may not enter into any multi-year lease or contract without prior approval from the fiscal body, that being the city council.
That's actually what I was going to suggest, but I didn't get it out.
I'm not sure why we're talking about this at all.
But I don't want it to include copiers, anything that affects their day-to-day job. I don't see why we would have to.
That opens up
These
a-
cars are affects the day-to-day.
That
job.
opens up a lot of gray
I
area.
think they're talking about high-ticket items.
Oh.
15 police cars, a fire truck, the fire.
I mean, I
think
think
they're-
we're gonna pass
Maybe we
this-
should put a threshold of money, anything over X amount or something maybe.
Well, and I think this brings up another potential problem. They're obviously, sewer board and utilities, they're exempt under that statute. Also, if there's anything that comes from a bond proceeds, it's exempt. But what happens if the city decides, okay, we're going to do an infrastructure project that is not sewer related, and the monies do not come out of a bond? Say we decided we're going to do a project out of edit, for example, a sidewalk. And let's assume that sidewalk is going to take more than this budget year to complete. And we hire a contractor to do that under this ordinance, that contract is void. So I understand the concern. I was in your seat at one time and dealt with these same issues, and I think obviously they're legitimate concerns, but I've learned in 20 years that sometimes a knee-jerk reaction in the legislative process usually leads to more problems, and it seems like me that that's what you're opening up here, is that you're trying to solve a problem that's probably legitimate under certain circumstances, but you're also going to create a lot more problems for the day-to-day operation of the city, and at the end of the day, that's going to impact the citizens. So
I would just comment that out of respect for Councilperson Z, he's unable to be here tonight, and this is his brainchild, or he's got more information about it than we do. And it sounds like that could be a lot of agreement to modify this or take it from a different angle. I would propose that we table it, let him speak to it.
Could we,
It doesn't do anything other than just delay it, lets him speak on it, and then we can choose to do what we want to do.
I was just going to suggest, could we possibly see since we have an idea of what we would maybe like to modify it to, where we see that language as well, for where the next meeting we could look at. If we decide not to go with this ordinance, we could look at a second one to keep it moving.
So let me tell you, that's a great question. Let me tell you, this is the first time I've been asked to do anything like this. So as Nathan recalls and Ronnie recalls and Ed would recall, in the role I'm in, if it's just like Ed, he's contacted me, sent me an email, said, hey, this is what I'm looking for, can you write this ordinance? You contact me and say, here's what I think it should look like, you write that ordinance. And then Nathan will tell you, I will show up with, here's Callie's version, and here's Nathan's version, and here's what they say, and you guys, that's all I am. And I wrote, and I start out pretty, and Les will agree, I'm pretty wordy. And I start out kind of wordy.
And with all fairness, this did not come as a surprise to the administration.
Because I sent it to you.
We were aware of this probably
I sent it to you both of y'all.
Yeah.
And I'll send it to everybody, you guys got it, and I send it to Les to see what he's got to say.
And like I said, I don't think the administration per se is opposed to it, it's just, let's step back and think about how do we accomplish what we want to accomplish without.
If what I'm suggesting is an issue, I'm just thinking in terms of it seems like there might be cases for each side, so I thought it made sense to maybe see language for both.
He's got the harder job than I do. He has
2017 OR.
He has 9. I have 1.
Got a motion and a second to table 2017 OR 57. Any further discussion?
Yes. Madam President. Mr. Wilder, what I would like to see, if we're going to, I would prefer us not pursue this at all. I am not in favor of an ordinance, a law of this nature whatsoever. So since there will be some modifications, I would ask you to write a mirror resolution. If we just want the administration to give us these contracts before they're executed for our information or for approval, then maybe we can encourage that in a resolution. But I think when we make laws, it's for solving problems. I'm not for over-legislating the city of Jeffersonville. It's just my opinion, my point of view. So I would ask for a resolution to be presented if there is another ordinance presented.
And anyone else that has anything they want to, just shoot me an email and...
I'm very sure. No.
Can we have 8 versions?
So you'll know, and Ed was not here because he actually came to the house and he saw this. So I went on my computer and I found 20 years of stuff that I've done as either the mayor's lawyer, the city council's attorney, and there are some there, and it was the credit card ordinance, and there's Nathan's 4, and there's Vicky's 3, and so during the credit card ordinance, everybody had like 5 and 6 versions of their own ordinance, and I still have those. So if you want to whip that one out, we could do that too.
I'm just talking about Cali 1 here, so
Cali 1, we're going to have
we'll just
your
start with that.
You historically have begun it on my heart.
Oh my gosh.
Cali 1.
So all those
All right.
in favor signify by saying aye of tabling 2017 OR 57.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Moving on to, we have, you have in your packet, it is the letter from River Ridge regarding the capture of increment assessed value for the River Ridge Development Authority, and it's basically them telling us, we're not giving you the
Says they don't have any money.
They
It
don't
says
have
that
no money to give us. There's
they
no
tied up
money.
all their tax receipts for building infrastructure. I make a motion we accept it into the record.
250 million going into that area?
Clerk,
That they want to put into the area.
They're
Yeah.
collecting.
clerk, treasurer, they don't even have.
Let them build their own fire station in
They
Maine.
don't. I think some people just don't know.
I don't either.
Is that entirely in your district, Scott?
Yes.
250 million that they have needed infrastructure, and that's not what they're bringing.
Not what they're
in.
collecting?
No. I think they have like 36 million, don't they?
Okay.
I had a first. Did I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Lessons are broken out. Okay.
Want to find a letter too?
First up, we have the resolution approving and ratifying interlocal agreement between the City of Jeff and Greater Clark County Schools to assign a Jeff Police Officer to Gordon Porter School.
Yes. You have in front of you a resolution that approves an agreement with the school corporation for us to place a reserve officer, or resource officer that is, a Jeffersonville police officer as a resource officer at the Gordon Porter School. We have done this at other schools within the school district. This would be for next year. The school board has already approved or adopted its resolution, which is in your packet, showing that they did adopt that resolution. But it requires a resolution adopted by you as the fiscal body. This position is in next year's budget proposal that we'll be presenting to the council. This individual would be hired in the upcoming November applicant pool.
Resolution number 9.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll entertain.
Unless you say they're going to hire a new person for this position?
Well, I think it's going to come out of the next applicant. That's what the chief tells me.
Okay, so basically maybe a different officer go and then we'll
Yes,
fill that spot.
yes, they're not going to fill this spot until they go through the next applicant process, which is in November.
Do the other officers that are in the schools, they aren't financed this way, are they?
Yes, they are.
Yes,
It's all financed this way.
yes.
I was thinking that the district paid a person, like 75% of the officer's salary annually. Is it just a 4-year? So they'll pay for the Gordon Porter officer through 2020 and then we'll pick it up from there?
Well, my advice would be is probably sometime in 2020, we approach the school corporation again about
Okay.
I think your
asking for their
figures and that were
assistance.
on the percentages. On the other ones, they probably paid the salary, but they didn't pay for any of the benefits or any of the other stuff, which probably added up to 25% or more. That is.
That might have been what I was thinking.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, what's the number?
9.
9. Resolution 9.
Got a motion, a second, to pass 2017 R9. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay, now we have the interlocal agreement between the City of Jeff and Greater Clark County Schools to assign a Jeff Police Officer to Gordon Porter.
No, that was what we just did. I think
Second.
there might have been some
interlocal
confusion
agreement
caused
and
by my office. That's because we gave them 2 documents, because I included what the school corporation had adopted to show you that they adopted a resolution. So what you all need to do, you've done.
Yeah, here's the interlocal. The next thing is just the interlocal that you
Yes.
all...
Okay,
Nice.
so we can move on to the resolution approving and ratifying the interlocal agreement between the City of Jeff and Clark County and the Town of Clarksville for the JAG grant.
Yes, this is a JAG grant. It's a grant that we have received from the U.S. Department of Justice for $14,000, and this is to purchase tasers and stop sticks. And this is a joint venture with the Town of Clarksville. Our obligation to receive the funds is a total of $2,735.20 to the county, and then $12,635 to the town. That's from the money that we're getting from the JAG funds.
What's the number?
10.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 R10. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. So this other interlocal agreement, we don't need to do anything, it was just in the packet as well?
Yes, it was just,
Okay, so we can move on to Heather. 2018 City of Jeffersonville budget. Oh, we're finally at budget.
Want it on over?
Yeah,
I don't know how to work it.
I don't know how to work it either. It's probably involves electronics that I will probably screw up.
We'll do it.
I'm gonna touch anything.
Are we going to be going through the budget, or are we taking it under advisement?
We're just gonna make a general presentation of the highlights of the budget, and you all, I would assume, will do whatever.
Like, this is going to be another hour.
No, I'm gonna try to move through fairly, there's not a whole lot of changes, and they're highlighted, so. If we could, let's start with the,
Start with the first
real quick.
yellow.
Yeah, the first, this one here.
Summer.
If we could, I know you have this in front of you, and I know it's hard to see. Just to give you an overview of what the budget is, that the mayor is presenting. It is a balanced budget, revenue neutral. The total budget for all funds for 2018 that's being proposed is $54.4 million. That is based on revenue of $54.6 million. And as you can see, all the different funds are listed on this sheet. And every fund is in the good. For example, in the general fund, there is still $14,616 that's unbudgeted for next year. Then you see motor vehicle, a little over $17,000 is unbudgeted, as well as local roads and streets. The Parks and Recreation is tight, but it is balanced, with $97 still left unbudgeted for next year. Some of the
I appreciate it.
one of the larger ones that still have money that's unbudgeted for next year is Lloyd, and that is a little over $158,000 that's unbudgeted. And also, there's still a little over $22,000 unbudgeted for gaming revenue. And I think now we can just go through the various departments real quick. And we're only going to go to the ones where there's changes. So the first changes would be under page 2, under what was formerly the Department of Engineering. At the request of Andy, he's asked that this be, his department be designated the Department of Public Works slash engineering, just because he sort of deals with more than just engineering. I think we're okay if I stand over here.
Yeah,
It's not 2 of 6.
Page 2.
It's behind the tab.
Behind the tab, page 2 behind the tab.
I couldn't figure it out either.
Sorry, before the tab is all the revenues.
Yeah.
Eclipse.
Push that thing forward.
They don't want us going through the budget tonight either.
Don't stare into the light.
Larry moved it. Larry moved it. That's what happened.
She would have let me stand on
I'm
the
good.
side.
I can speak loud.
There you go, project.
Oh, I turned mine off.
I don't want to. Yeah, why don't we waste money on your money?
Oh!
We need to keep it off so that we can save on electricity at the very least.
But back to the Public Works Engineering Department, there are 2 new positions that Andy is requesting. One is a new electrician. Right now, the city has 1 electrician, and that's just not getting the job done. There's too much that needs to be done from that standpoint. We sometimes can go months. I think Lisa can attest to this, with electrical issues that need to be addressed, whether it be stoplights or street lights or lights at the various parks and so forth. So Andy is requesting that a new electrician be included in his budget. Also, he's requesting a new position, that being general laborer. And then also at the request of his department, Parks, and Don Spiker, the public arts administrator position would move from Parks to the Department of Public Works and Engineering. That being because at the end of the day, she deals probably more with public works and public right-of-ways and so forth than she does with actually doing public art in parks. So those are the three changes in his budget. In the police department budget, this budget takes into consideration the contract that you all approved tonight. In fact, we have funded both the 457 match and the HSA contribution at the max. I think it's safe to say that it's unlikely that all that money would be expended, but we thought for purposes of the budget, we would max those out. I think after the first year or so, we'll have a better idea as to what exactly we probably should be doing in subsequent years.
Les, sorry, but it does include the differential on the rank?
Yes.
All the...
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
We verified that today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And again, I'm just hitting where there are significant changes. The fire department budget, there are a couple additions there at the request of the fire chief. The budget includes a new position that would be designated as fire apparatus mechanic. This in the past has been over in motor vehicle, in the motor vehicle department. The chief is asking that be placed in his budget, with that individual being a mechanic working full-time on their equipment, specifically the fire trucks and their support vehicles. Also, the chief is requesting, and I will say that this has been in the budget for the last 2 or 3 years, and we have removed it because the budgets have been tight. But this year we were able to present this to the council, and that is the creation of a new part-time position in the office of the headquarters for the fire department. Right now they just have one administrative assistant. If she's not there, on vacation, on sick or whatever, there's no one who can fill in for her. The chief would like to have an opportunity to have a part-time position to alleviate when that does occur.
And on here, that's the $30,000.
Yes,
0.166.
part-time.
Yeah.
And then again, we have placed in the budget their 457 match and their HSA contribution as well.
Mr. Merkley?
Yes.
$30,000 is a part-time salary?
With
Up to.
up to.
Yeah.
For a part-time salary?
Probably
For an
would not.
administrative assistant? That seems excessive. We could put a full-time person upstairs in the planning department with that $30,000.
And this
This is not the negotiation time.
It's just a $30,000 part-time salary?
$54.6 million budget, so.
Trying to get us out of here.
But one addition that, this is really not an addition, it's a shift. If you look at near the bottom, it would be lease payments, line 438.16, $20,000. That previously has been over in Lloyd. We asked the chief to see if he can move some over into the general fund, and that's what he has done at our request, and that would pay for the lease of 3 staff vehicles. There's no change in building commission, planning and zoning. there is a request for a raise that's above the standard 3% raise that is in the budget for all employees. Again, there is the performance pool that includes a 3% raise for all employees. I will highlight some where it's more than that, and that one of them being the Director of Planning and Zoning. And the thought is that when you look at his pay grade, his is more of a professional position. He has a professional degree, he has a master's, and the thought is to move him more up to where the other professional positions are. And also the creation of a new position in planning and zoning, a planning and design supervisor. The next, we did, in the city council budget, we did add $1.5 million additional for health insurance.
Lisa and Vicki added the $1.5 million in health insurance.
We did the
Skipped an overtime line.
And then also, if you look at workers' comp and property and casualties, I think we're funding a little bit more than what Jerry Rauch recommended, but better to be safe than sorry.
Are you kidding me?
In the finance department, the only change is an addition of $15,000, but that's not really an addition. It's just moving that line item from human resources over into finance. It is the computer software for Cronus. So when you get to HR, you'll see a reduction in their budget. In fact, we're coming out a little ahead because I think the reduction in HR was for $22,000. In vehicle maintenance, there's a request for a raise for the director of vehicle maintenance. In addition, he's requesting the creation of a new position, that being a diesel mechanic. And then also, he's asking for more money to be placed in motor equipment supplies. I'll let Vicki speak to the clerk. It's my understanding we're just nothing.
Yeah.
It's the same amount of money, but we're not. It's just
The clerk?
yeah.
No, I cut my budget, and I would like to take mine back and look at it again since other people are expanding theirs. I cut mine way back, extremely so, and I would like to have your all's permission to go back and look at this again and revisit it. It seems that there's things in here that I had cut. One of them in particular, I mean, I'm kind of, the one I want you all to look at was the error that was made on the, and I have a budget sheet that during budget time I will present to you to show where the difference it was in the numbers, where that salary was different. But I'd like to go back and revisit mine. I mean, I substantially, on purpose, cut mine as a city taxpayer, and it's just kind of amazing to me when I look and see all the other departments increasing theirs substantially when we are cutting ours to make sure that we're living within a tax with the taxpayers. I mean, we've even quit buying manila folders. We're doing everything we can to cut our budget so it would help out with the rest. And it's just kind of amazing to me that all these other budgets are just going crazy. So I'd like permission to go back and revisit mine.
Fine with me. We have until October to adopt the budget.
I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the numbers correctly. So, you cut your budget to $24,000, correct, from 2017 to 2018?
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll have a little history. Every year when it would come up during budget times that the budget would need to be cut, I would cut again. I would voluntarily say I would take money out of my budget. So, and it would be anywhere from 10 to 20,000 each time. So I keep continuing during these periods to cut my budgets, and I mean, I'm just kind of amazed. My chief deputy, we do her job has increased with the Ordinance Violations Bureau and things, and we're collecting money, we're going through issues, and there's people that are, their chief deputies are, which are their executive assistants and administrative assistants are making more, and I would just like to revisit this.
Yes. I would note that the general fund, which is where a lot of the operating expenses for the city comes out of, is an increase from last year that was adopted by the council. The 2017 budget was $28.6 million. This budget proposal is $31.7, so it's about a $3 million increase, but over half of that is from police and fire.
So $1.5 million was police and fire?
If my arithmetic in my head is correct, which, as Larry tells you, they did not teach
That
us
can't be correct, because we have $1.5 million in addition to health insurance.
And then 1.5 of health insurance.
Right.
That was a general fund. So you had $802,000, an increase of $802,000 in the police department budget out of the general fund. And then you had $449,000 out of the general fund for the fire department. So that's a little over half of the $3 million increase. And then you throw in the health insurance. The next department, there was a change was...
I got a question. So when we say it's that increase, I'm failing to see how such an enormous increase could be there. Because when you're talking about $500,000 and $700,000, somebody help me out. I'm just looking confusingly at people.
You mean like for the police department?
Yes.
Well, you just as a result of the raises, the increase is $212,000.
Well, and that's based on the raise. The contract we just passed tonight was a 3% raise, but those didn't begin until next year. This year was a 2.1% raise. So a 2.1% raise equaled $214,000.
Which
So
percentage?
that's civilians, you gotta remember you got civilians.
3%.
You got civilians in there. And so even though it's supposed to be 3%, it's according to House, so it can go up to 5% per employee.
Okay.
And again, we also are budgeting the max for the 457 match and the HSA contribution, which is a little over, those combined, looks like it's probably about $225,000.
And it'll be less than half that.
Overtime is also.
Yeah.
So it'll only be half. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just, when we look at the increases primarily come from two departments and then health insurance. The safety manager and I don't want to say Department of Safety because technically it's in HR, is requesting a raise. This number that's in there is half from the general fund. Another half would come from sewer in that amount. Human Resources, the only change of any substance is the reduction that I spoke of earlier in contractual services.
So, go ahead, continue, I'm sorry.
Next, I'll move to motor vehicle, which is on page 13. At the request of the street department, we have increased the dollar amounts for what we pay CDLs. We're having a difficult time filling those positions, filling them, and also having individuals who are qualified in those positions. That is the reason for that request. Also, when we went through the budget, there was a large amount of money left at the end of the next year in the street department motor vehicle. We did not want to use that money for continuing expenses. So we have included $250,000 under vehicles. These would be the purchase of a claw truck and a sweeper. And it may purchase more than that, but we believe that dollar amount will cover the purchase of those. A claw truck and a sweeper.
Yeah, they need a packer, and they also need a one arm, and the street.
No, we
No,
asked
this
what they
is
needed, and
amount.
that's what they said they needed.
I don't know the specifics, but I'm just a little alarmed that the $185,000 reduction in our salt and all of that for.
She can speak to that.
That's shifted to local road and street.
We're not cutting salt.
How do we know whether?
We're not cutting salt. I've listed that before, but that's not a good thing to do. Under Parks and Recreation, and again, this has been approved by the Parks Board. They're requesting the creation of a new position, Assistant Superintendent. And this is strongly supported by the administration with our expanding Parks Department. Paul is overloaded, and we have various people under him doing different things, but there's not like one person under him to sort of help alleviate the workload for all the aspects of the parks. We are proposing the creation of that position, and then also a new position for skilled laborer. Is that correct, Heather?
Yes.
Okay. And then under Recreation Programs and Aquatic Center Manager, that's an increase in that line item, but that's a shift. That dollar amount that's there, $21,347, is being shifted from the 209 fund over into the 204 fund. So all the salary for the Recreation Programs and Aquatic Center Manager will come out of the 204 fund. Again, the parks budget is balanced. It's tight. They have $97 that's unbudgeted for next year. Also, there is a new position being proposed under...
That's the moving from the general labor.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
General labor moving to crew leader maintenance.
So we're just shifting that, correct?
Yes.
Then and how we were able to fund some of the parks was at the recommendation of Paul and the Parks Board. There was money we continue to fund for open spaces that has not been used. So we shifted that money out of that to make up the difference elsewhere in the parks budget. Let's see. The ice rink, which is Department 530, that has been eliminated for this year, and all likely will be eliminated for next year as well, since we're losing the location of where the ice rink has been. And we hope in the next 2 years come up with a new location that'll work for downtown. We'll move on to page 18. If you go to page 18, that's the next major change under Riverfront Events, Department 557. We're asking for an additional $50,000, but this is really not a new money because this is for a national fish tournament and country music festival. I think it's Cabela's is coming in for that, but this dollar amount, the $50,000, is reflected in the revenue for that function in the Parks Department as a result of sponsorships that'll be coming in as a result of Cabela's and so forth. No, this is
Fishing
or
tournament.
fish in the river.
Yeah, catfish.
Largemouth bass.
Yeah.
We'll get you acquainted.
Asian carp.
The next change would be, it's not highlighted, but I wanted to point out, is on page 19. That is under Sheriff Gaming Revenues, under Professional Services. In 2016, if you recall, the mayor established the homeless task force, and at that time, money was appropriated to help come up with a plan to deal with the homeless situation in the community. This year, there was no money in the budget for that. The administration is requesting that another $75,000 be included in next year's budget to go toward the Homeless Coalition to help fund their endeavors.
Wait a minute, Lisa, didn't you? Lisa had me do that.
Yeah, I request, that's okay.
Lisa requested that to be put in, because that's council money.
Yeah, but this, I mean, I understand, but
The administration agreed with the request, I guess.
Yes, I called it, yes. That's what I was wanting.
I mean, this is,
Let's get it right here.
is there a problem? Okay. I'm sure if we had not included it, we would have been criticized for that, so.
No, you're not getting criticized. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just saying let's play it together here. Because I did that budget.
I'm not aware who put that in. I'm just stating the mayor requested that it remain in there. The CDL driver under Fund 244 in sanitation, page 21, there's a request, as I spoke earlier, in the other fund to increase funding for CDLs. We did request that, right?
Yes.
Okay. There is, on page 23, under Thunder Committee non-reverting fund, there is a one-time request for equipment. This is for additional barricades for the Thunder event of $23,500.
I want to add to that. That's because when I was talking with Les about the barricades, these are different than the barricades of the street department. We did an additional for them to get those into their, but these are heavier and more of a requirement that's used specifically for this. I didn't want them to think we just added money and bought new barricades for street department while we buy more.
That's correct.
There's a big difference in these barricades than what we
Are
purchased.
these barricades like the kind that stop vehicles because of the
Yes,
recent events?
yes.
The next change is on page 26, under sidewalk construction. That is all the money, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, that is all the money that is coming out of edit into sidewalks and also the existing cash balances that we have today.
Yes.
And also money that we had in those other funds that we shifted over tonight for a total of,
104,000.
I thought we were going to include ADA money in that.
ADA money is budgeted more in the general fund.
Yes.
And that's all under state statute.
It was
guides
under a
that.
separate.
Yeah.
I saw it separately.
the money that we moved over was the in lieu program money and the 50/50.
Will it all be appropriated to go into the non-reverting fund?
Yes.
Is that what I'm thinking?
All of it except ADA. ADA we have to keep separate. And, 403, we made a reduction there just because the CUMCAT development was running a deficit, and because our goal was to present a budget that was revenue neutral. Page 27, under the Building Authority Operating Non-Reverting Fund, this is money that is funded, it's placed into the fund and operate this building. There is a request for a raise for the building commissioner to come out of that pool of money to, as you all know, the building commissioner is, in addition to being a building commissioner, he's the ex facto in charge of the city hall.
Kind of like the trustee.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, there's also a request to compensate the board members. They are not compensated right now.
What about the secretary? Did y'all do anything about the secretary?
She's included in the board members.
Then next significant change is page 29. When we went through the budget and went through edit and funded all the requests that were submitted by the departments, there was approximately $450,000 that was not budgeted for next year out of edit. There obviously is the dilemma of two projects that I think the administration and the mayor believes is worthy, that being the Spring Street revitalization project that would run from Riverside Drive up to Eastern Boulevard. We did receive the engineer's estimates for that. We did make some cuts, but at the end of the day, with contingencies and so forth, to do that project at one time and do it all is $4.4 million. The New Chapel sidewalk project, which the administration also supports, that we have hard numbers on that as well from the engineers, that is $1 million. So it's approximately $5.4 million in projects. At the end of the day, when you have $450,000 left in edit and you have $5.4 million in projects, you don't have enough money to do those two projects. You don't have enough money to do one project without dipping into the reserves. And this budget would no longer be revenue neutral. We discussed this matter with Umball and said with $450,000 per year out of edit, how much could we bond? And the result was we could bond $5.7 million. Therefore, the administration is proposing that the council commit $450,000 in next year's budget, and also to begin the process of a bond from edit to fund both the Spring Street revitalization program and the New Chapel sidewalks. Would be a 20-year bond. If we don't, the option is, if we don't do the bond, then there's not enough money available to do both of those projects. So you're going to have to pick and choose which project you're going to do, and even if you do that, you're going to have to dip into reserves because there's not enough cash available to do that, either one of those projects, and certainly not both of them. So
let's, where does the sidewalks north of Eastern Boulevard, I thought they were going to be included in some of this.
We've already appropriated that money.
Oh, okay.
obviously, I mean, if you decide you want to pursue with the bond, obviously, there are many hurdles that are necessary to jump through. Would be at least a 2 or 3, maybe 4-month process. My only advice would be is, even if you have an inclination that you are going to do the bond, I would say sooner the better that you adopt a reimbursement resolution. So in the event that you do the bond, and any money that you expend on either New Chapel or Spring Street, you can reimburse out of the bond once you do the bond.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
So, and I apologize because it's hard for me to read this because of my age. The amount that is in Lloyd, I'm sorry, edit, that we're just using one part of it. I'm just trying to identify the 549,000 is the top segment. That's just one segment of the edit, right?
Yes.
Want to make sure that what are we?
If you go to, if you go to the very first page that had the summary of all the funds, summary appropriation and cash balances, edit, which is Fund 444. As you can see, you will end this year with approximately, assuming things continue as they go, with approximately a little over $1 million in edit cash on hand. You will then receive another $2.4 million next year. And then the proposed budget for the edit for next year is $2.4 million. That would leave a estimated cash balance at the end of next year, assuming everything is spent out of edit, that is budgeted a little over $1 million.
Thank you.
Which is better than which is a little bit better than what you'll end this year at, which is a little over, by $9,000.
I have two questions.
So I guess, Dan, when you look at that number, even let's assume you only have $1 million to play with out of edit for next year that's unbudgeted if you don't do the bond.
And the way this is, I think, I thank you, I see it now, but this budget spends what we're expected to come in and edit, and not really generate much, not reserve any, not really.
That's correct.
That's, okay.
The revenues are based on this year's revenues, not an increase.
Not increase, yes.
And what's the percentage of our reserves right now for, I mean, your reserves right now are,
40, close to 45%.
Yeah. I mean, your reserves are higher than.
I got you.
Two questions. You may have already answered the first one, and I wasn't listening. The bond that Umball proposed with the amount that you've budgeted, what's the term of that bond?
20.
20 years? For a $5 million bond?
5.7 of proceeds. And that's of proceeds. But we're not proposing 5.7 proceeds. We're proposing $5.4 million in proceeds.
Okay. And do we account for any revenue from the urban enterprise zone to pay a portion of that?
Not under those numbers, no.
Okay.
The question I had is,
You
the
ain't getting out
number
of
for
this.
sidewalks is a specific number. It's like 598,000. Is that number because that just happens to be how much money from all these funds we've put into a fund? Or is that number because, hey, we already have the list of sidewalks and that's the total that we think it's going to cost?
I didn't hear from the beginning.
The sidewalk number in the new sidewalk fund, the 500,000+.
Oh.
Is that number is it that number because that's what all of the different funds we're now putting into that total? Or is that a list of projects that we want to do that's a total?
It is the 80-some thousand that's coming out of the fund that you closed tonight. It's I think there's like 9,000 in it originally. And then there's the 500,000 that you budget every year that's in edit that will move over there.
So there's not projects for that yet?
So there's not projects for that money yet?
Right, and then I'm assuming in the past, Andy's come to you with a list of what our projects are going to be, but I don't know if he makes that list before he gets a number, before you all decide how much money, because, if you give him a list for or if you gave him, $200,000, he'll come up with a list. If you gave him $800,000, he'd come up with a list. So it's all in whatever
We would take the list into account, then we'd also would take you added that's where the Packer trucks are,
And then is there any way, I didn't see it because I'm sure it wasn't a large amount, this goes to the Oak Park Conservancy question that we dealt with, where we were wanting to create a new line item to be able to start addressing some of the drainage concerns in the Oak Park Conservancy District. Has that been part of this?
No.
Okay.
So we were faced with a dilemma with, for example, New Chapel sidewalks. We had $450,000 in edit. That wasn't going to get it done. We did have $590,000 in the sidewalk fund, but that would mean that all the $590,000 in sidewalk money would be spent on New Chapel, which I guess can be done, but.
Another question, Les. Were the projections for increases across all departments in here, salary or wage increases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have a question about page 20, the Fund 240 for the River Stage. We're estimating a $60,000 decrease. Where is that number?
Based on actual revenues. So we went through, and some of the projections for this year were done prior to some of the city partnership money. But now we have a really good handle on what those revenues will be for the next year, and and base the budget on what the actual revenues should be.
Okay, great.
Is that all you had, Les?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's enough. Thank you.
It's a lot.
You don't vote to pass that motion.
No. No, I don't think so.
This ought to wake everybody up.
Okay. Heather, you're still up with an ordinance transferring certain funds within the same department, and I think it'll be OR
58.
I don't want to touch this. I don't know how to work with it.
All right.
Columns you like me to do.
Now my budget's all color-coded.
I would.
Color coding is important.
Okay, are we on transfers? I'm sorry, I missed
Yes.
where we were at. Okay. The transfers, the first one is for environmental fees, and that's for the televisions, to dispose of televisions. And then the second one is for repairing the brine tank.
Motion to approve 2017 OR 58.
Second.
On which
Done.
readings, first and second?
First and second.
Got a motion, a second to pass 2017 OR 58 in the first and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to an ordinance of additional appropriation, and we'll have a public hearing at our next meeting.
Yes, the first one is for the finance department, and that's for 2 time clocks for the Kronos. The time clock that's out at the animal shelter is completely shut down and broken. So they now have to take manual time in and out. And then the second one would be for us to have a spare in the office and for troubleshooting different issues and things that other departments have when they call in and they say, my time clock looks like this, and we don't know what that looks like until we pull it up on the machine. So that's what that is.
These are physical clocks?
Yes.
There's not like a web portal?
No.
Seems antiquated.
Well, you have to push the buttons, and it proves that you're at that location.
Right.
Question that I want to ask, since I'm fairly new here on the council, but all of these additional appropriations that we seem to continue to come up with, where does that money come from?
Out of the unappropriated revenues, or it would be coming from the reserves, based on that 12-line statement that I give you every month.
Otherwise, it's just like the council doesn't pass a budget at all.
Well, that's why I give you a 12, things change throughout the year, so other revenues are realized
In the
also.
budget.
That is the dilemma.
You need to live
All
within
the
the budget.
additional appropriations that you do for the year, for this year, when DLGF goes to do the budget for 2018, they also take into account all the additional appropriations you have, and they work on that when they come up with your all's budget.
Which means they can reduce our,
Yes.
our budget.
Yeah.
So what that 12-line statement shows is that what actually passed last year's budget, and after we received our revenues after circuit, there were we received more revenues than were budgeted. So the additional appropriations are using those revenues that came in this year that were not budgeted because the budget is so conservative.
So otherwise, you have department heads that says, look, there's some more I can get my hands on. Let's spend it.
And that's
Right.
why we have to, that's why we debate each one that comes up and determine if it's an actual need or not.
If you would like for the animal shelter to have manual timekeeping, then we can do that too. That's why you all have a vote on all those, yes. The second two go together for the software and hardware for the Parks Department, and that is for the new program that they desperately need, I feel. It's called RecTrack software, and I know...
Nope, he's out.
Oh, he's not. Oh, man. But it's for the pool and for the Canellis, and it kind of organizes their area. It also helps when you order like a pool pass. Help me out, Lisa.
Yes, because I discussed this with Paul.
Okay, good.
This is a need, in my opinion, because his system is kind of like outdated. In order for him to get the, more or less the software update and upkeep and maintenance of all that actually outweighs the cost of would be for this new software.
Yes.
Which this new software tracks all of his, rentals, all the money he's bringing in, and also the future, like if somebody reserves the
Passes,
shelter at
yes.
this theme park, he'll be able to manage his revenues that he's bringing
And
in.
it'll integrate with the credit card software that we have, which is a huge benefit on our end.
Right. It'll cost too much to update what he has, so that is one thing I think is a need that will really help citywide when we look back on parks revenues.
And then the last one is the 50,000 that is from the tourism, and it's just a pass-through for the Abbey Road portion. Abbey Road on the river.
Okay, that'll be ordinance 2017 OR 59. Do I have a,
So moved.
Second.
First and second reading.
got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 59, first and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. And I'm starting to lose my voice after tonight. Okay, Mr.
Lips.
Oh. Larry, do you have anything for us tonight for the city council attorney report?
I have about 30 minutes, but I'll just reserve that for next.
Okay. Mr. Merkley, is there anything you want to bring up at this time about what we discussed with Sarah? Will be bringing the situation you want to wait and put that out in an email, or because...
About the HVAC?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, email?
Yeah.
We'll have to, about waiving the rules next meeting.
I'll send out an email
Okay,
at the next meeting.
all right. No departments left, department heads left, okay. Is there any public comment? Of course, I don't think anybody's there but the Equins. No public comment? All right, so we will move on to council comments, and Councilperson White, we'll start with you.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the Les and the administration for submitting to us another balanced budget. Very much appreciate it. Makes our job relatively easy. I also appreciate the including the Spring Street Master Plan project in the budget for next year and the financing mechanism for that. It's a very important project. It's been presented over the past year on a couple occasions to the council. We've had public meetings, so it's nice to see that the administration considers that a priority. I'm also happy that we were able to pass the FOP contract. We spent a lot of time on that, and it's an honor to serve on this council, but it's also an honor to be able to support our police department as well as our fire. So I hope they're as happy with it as we are to be done with it. And they stay safe out there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilperson Yon.
Yeah, are we gonna address next steps for a budget? Obviously, we'll have a time period to look over everything. Good, I'll leave that to you then. And then just, I like to remind everyone of all the holidays we have coming up. So everyone have a good 3-day weekend for Labor Day, and also Steamboat Nights is that weekend. So should be a really exciting few days. I'm looking forward to it. Kudos to everyone that was on that committee, and Dawn especially. I know she's put a lot of hard work into that event. So that's all I got.
Councilperson Lee. Councilperson Hawkins.
2 quick things. One, I neglected when I was giving my thank yous for the FOP contract to thank our capable attorney, Larry Wilder, because he had, oftentimes I would think that he already was part of a conversation and wasn't, and he was confused, but we caught him up to, he's easy to confuse. But we caught him up to speed, and I didn't thank him. And the other thing coming up, I think the planning this month, and then so to us very soon, I've met with the developer on more than one occasion about an enormous development that's coming in at the corner of Middle Road and Port Road. It's over 500 units. It has some very interesting design features, we probably are going to be hit up to coordinate with them to actually, they're going to build a couple lakes and then want to donate that to Jeff as a park. And so you need to become fully aware, and that's going to be a very, very big deal. So really kind of dig into that, because that's the kind of project that is going to set the tone for other projects. That is going to be a keystone project. So it'll just make you aware to be on the lookout and get involved in that process.
Should be on our next council agenda, because it goes to parks next week. Or not parks.
Planning and zoning. Is that all?
That's it.
Councilperson Owen.
Just thank you to the FOP 100 and Local 558 on their efforts with the administration and the chiefs of both departments. Thank you, President Jackson, for being able to answer any questions that we had this evening. Congratulations. I know there's a lot of well-earned, well-deserved benefits for your membership there, and we're very appreciative of everything that both departments does for the city.
Councilperson Ellis.
No comments.
Councilperson Samuel.
Just one comment regarding the next meeting or two. Not exactly sure if I'll be here. My daughter is pregnant and due the beginning of September, or the 14th of September, which means I could be another grandfather from tonight till the end of September. So I will keep you posted. But if I'm not here, that is my reason, and I will communicate. Thank you.
And some pictures, right?
I will. I can do a presentation, a workshop.
Is that all you had?
Involved, I'm bad.
Okay. And everybody got a chance to look at this, so I will turn it back in, and I think everybody was agreed on pose 94. Does anybody need to look at it again? Okay, you can look at that again. Okay, when he brought up about the homeless coalition, when we sat down, Vicki and I sat down and did our council budget worksheets. They all had worksheets they had to turn in. And all the insurances, we called our agents of record, and we went through, I had the appropriations, we looked at every appropriation that we had, and we feel comfortable with the numbers that we came up with, the insurance. And the 75,000 homeless, we put back in gaming because that's where it was the first time. And then also, want to discuss that we kind of went over it with CUMCAP. We have, it's kind of arts in City Pride. And with City Pride, she didn't touch on it tonight. I thought she was going to. their main fundraiser is that River Breeze. And they've been having a hard time because that River Breeze, I guess the way it would fall during the year, would either compete or be around the same time as our Steamboat Nights or other things that we have going on. They're having a hard time raising their funds. So I had a discussion with Peggy and had a discussion with the mayor and also with Les and with Heather. And they've gotten $14,000 for, I don't know how long we can remember, and they're still going to be able to do fundraising. They still have more projects, but I said I would really like if to bump that up to where we could say City Pride has a $30,000 budget, which is what they operate off of every year, which they get the 14 for us, and then they rely on that 16,000 for either sponsorships, donations, or their main fundraiser. So I want you all to keep that under consideration. It's really, that amount is what, like 65,000 that's in there, that's kind of like left there, but we kind of safeguard some of that for the public arts too.
What are you proposing we increase it to?
30,000. That's their, yes. They've got,
No.
well, no, it's
Not, you know,
it's 65,000
its
and
own line item, it's in your, it's in
It's under city beautification, I believe.
yes. Yes.
Dustin, I think it's under city beautification.
Yeah, the money's there, and most time I think there's even extra that's not used, depending if Arts had a project or something. It's kind of like a safeguard. So I'd just like for you all to think about that. It'd be the administration's really behind supporting City Pride. He's been attending their meetings, and I know they've been taking on more and more projects. So, and also we need to decide to about our budget workshops. Are we going to have night meetings, budget hearings, and also if we need to meet with any of the department heads. I'd like to let the administration know that if we want to schedule a public hearing with one of the department heads, because as you know, we didn't meet with any of the department heads last year with the revenue neutral budget. But if you want to look at your books and what less, we got new employees that are proposed, however you want to move them forward. But if there is anybody that we need to meet with, let them know. And then I don't think we need to have all those budget hearings at night. And if we do have like a workshop or budget hearing, we can't have them all run consecutively in the week, because it makes it very hard to get the minutes done and for staff to be staying here all day and then into the evening. So there are kind of some things that we just need to start mulling over, and we need to, by next meeting, we need to let people know what we're going to do. If we need to schedule workshop, a night public hearing, schedule something before a council meeting, whatever we need to do, but especially if any questions that you need further information on, or if we need to meet with any department heads, is the key one there. I think that's all I have.
One last thing is your next council meeting will be on Tuesday the 5th. That's Labor Day.
I'm okay with it. One workshop. If you have specific questions for particular departments,
Just think about it all and mull it all over, and with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.